Welcome in. On this day in 1987, little trivia for you. The 49ers traded for Steve Young, a quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A lot of people thought the 49ers might trade to open this second round of the NFL draft because they traded twice to move out of the first round. That, however, not going to be the case. Dejon Stribling, the wide receiver out of Ole Miss, actually played for Washington State, then Oklahoma State, and then Ole Miss for a season, is the 49ers pick at number 33. So we knew that they were going to go receiver at some point in this draft. In fact, the best guess probably would have been in the second round. This is the very first pick of the second round, and I can tell you a little bit about Dejon Stribling. Now, the key stat, and I think Kyle Shanahan really likes this, he only dropped one pass last season. Had 55 catches, over 800 yards, has been consistent over the past two seasons, over 800 yards in both of those two seasons, and only one drop last year, a 1.9% drop rate. So I think that the just standard receiving skills have a high enough floor to where the 49ers are comfortable that this guy can come in and contribute as ready-made depth, because that is what it calls for on this team, with Ricky Pearsall returning to health, with Mike Evans now at the X, and with Christian Kirk at that F wide receiver position. If you want to take a look at the Dejon Stribling spider chart, I think it's going to help you understand that he's a good athlete and he's got good size. He is 6'2", a little bit over 6'2", 207 pounds. The arm length is not great. That is the only metric on here that is below the 50th percentile. So I think that this would have been a first-round draft pick had he had 33, 34-inch arms, right? Somebody with the vacuum cleaner-like wingspan of a Brandon Ayuk was obviously a first-round pick for the 49ers because the catch radius. It is not great for Dejon Stribling, and I think because of that, he is not the best contested catch guy, but he's fast. He runs a 4.36 40. He's explosive. He's got a 36-inch vertical, 127-inch broad jump. You can see that's in the 82nd percentile. And the height is solid at that's over 6'2" for Dejon Stribling. He can block it. As you can see, we can go back to the picture of Dejon Stribling. It is a well-built upper half of his frame. Now, one of the criticisms is that, okay, maybe it doesn't have much more room to grow into his body, and doesn't have all that much more meat on the bone to develop. But I think as far as a floor goes, and he's got 4.3 speed, so we're not acting like this is somebody who's coming in running 4.5 or 4.6. There is explosive speed. I think that the 49ers like the fact that he's got that ready-made physical frame because they believe that it can plug right into a receiver room that is vet-heavy on top. But the biggest contractual truth that people need to know about the 49ers receiving room is they don't have anyone on this football team outside of Ricky Pearsall who has scored a touchdown in a 49ers uniform under contract beyond 2026. So, yes, day one, if everybody's healthy, Dejon Stribling is depth for the 49ers, but you need depth at wide receiver because of how things are going to fall off of a cliff contractually after 2026. We all know what's happened with Brandon Ayuk, and we're going to be watching how that finishes up. But San Francisco needs to build for future seasons, and they need to continue to fortify the depth for this season, because one of the major weaknesses of this football team has been average separation. They have not been creating space against man coverage. That's caused them to relook at how all of this is built. It's obviously been a downstream effect ever since Brandon Ayuk tore his ACL in week 7 of the 2024 season. And the 49ers are trying to solve things now by investing in free agency and Mike Evans and Christian Kirk, and now by adding Dejon Stribling. He was born in Hawaii. Then he moved to both North Carolina and San Diego. His dad was in the Marines, moved back to Hawaii, played his high school ball there. According to Dane Brugler, who writes The Beast up on The Athletic, Dane Brugler has a great quote from an NFL scout about Dejon Stribling. He's got that Hawaii chill, kind of quiet, but trains like he's a Marine. Priorities are in order. There are no off-field documented issues here. The 49ers, I think that they love the fact that his dad's a Marine and that Dejon Stribling trains like a Marine. He's a willing blocker who has impacted the run game. If you put on the tape at Ole Miss, he led the team in receiving touchdowns, but right away, just one season there, played all 15 games. By the way, decently durable, especially over the course of his past 2 seasons. He had a hand injury, a broken hand in 2023 that caused him to miss 10 games. But ever since then, he has been available, and he's been available to block, which is very, very important. He can, I think, play the X. And that's why I have to open up the 49ers roster so we can start to understand how this can potentially fit for San Francisco. So this here is the 90-man depth chart. This is our typical way to insert a new player into the mix. And since this is the first pick of the 49ers 2026 draft, you're going to see the green highlight for the first time. Green highlights are for rookie additions. The teal highlights are for free agent additions. And Mike Evans, immediately a foundational pillar of this team, got the yellow highlight. Now, you've got 6 receivers already on the 53-man projection looking in, but this might change some of those dynamics. This puts somebody like Jacob Cowing on the bubble immediately, on the hot seat immediately. We said if the 49ers somehow, some way did not draft a receiver, then the 6, if everyone were healthy, would be Evans, Pearsall, Kirk, Demarcus Robinson, Jordan Watkins, and Jacob Cowing. But now that Stribling is in the mix, well, I think he's going to make the roster. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put Cowing on the outside looking in here as a third F receiver. I'm going to move Watkins down a spot into that 6th spot for the 49ers. And I'm going to put the rookie, Dejon, this is how you spell it, Dejon Stribling, in behind Ricky Pearsall at the Z. Now, can he play X? I think so. To play X, which is that split end boundary position, you either have to have size or you have to have straight line speed. You have to be able to defeat coverage that is aggressive physically at the line of scrimmage without moving in motion, because that's the duty of the X receiver. I think Stribling can develop into that. I think that is probably the toughest position to play receiver-wise, and that's why they get paid the most money at X receiver, because physically you have to be very imposing. And I think that at 6'2", with the type of strength that you see, with the type of muscle that is visible in this picture, Dejon Stribling has the body and he has the speed to play the X. But the thing is that Kyle Shanahan, more than anything, is going to demand versatility out of his wide receivers. You have to play the X, you have to play the Z, you have to play the F, because that lends itself to the positional adaptability that San Francisco needs from its offense in order to threaten all corners of the field. If guys are only playing their predominant role all the time, then you don't have a situation where you can run anything that catches a defense off guard. You become way too predictable. So especially for a rookie who's going to be coming in, and, you know, the first day of training camp, I know that he's not going to be one of the 49ers' top 3 receivers. Now, maybe by the end of the training camp, things change. But if he's a guy here in this second line, he's got to be ready to fill in at that third wide receiver spot if Christian Kirk goes down. He's got to be ready to fill in at that second wide receiver spot if Ricky Pearsall goes down. He's got to be able to fill in at the X, and the X is what the 49ers have been missing. That's where Mike Evans is. And even though, like, we look at the body, we look at the speed, we look at the burst, and we look at the blocking ability, also important for the X, even though all of that checks out for Dejon Stribling to be able to play behind Mike Evans, learn from Mike Evans, which I think is a big potential benefit here. You can't just pigeonhole him behind Mike. And for right now, I've got Demarcus Robinson, the veteran. He's a good backup X. We saw him do that in the postseason. Saw him go off against the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Robinson, who's a vet, who's played with a lot of good quarterbacks, including Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes and Matthew Stafford. Demarcus Robinson on this team, Mike Evans on this team, who's obviously played with Tom Brady and Baker Mayfield and several other quarterbacks. Now he's going to be with Purdy. That's a good group of mentors, because Christian Kirk has been around the league as well for a young receiver. So we knew that the 49ers were going to pick a wideout. There was a lot of debate about which wideout they would pick. Turns out that the guys that they hosted on some of those 30 visits might have just been smokescreens for the 49ers, and they went with Dejon Stribling instead. I saw a good graphic come out from SF Data Niners looking at some of the 49ers 30 visits. And we only knew 18 of them coming into this draft. So it's not like we have the full picture. So maybe Stribling was part of the 12 unreported visits. But as you can see, receiver was a position that the 49ers scouted aggressively. Casey Concepcion, who ended up going at number 24. That was one spot down from his big board ranking. Concepcion, a versatile guy, smaller guy, though, than a Dejon Stribling. So the 49ers went with bigger wide out here at the top of the second round. They also hosted Chris Brazell II, the Tennessee wide receiver, who was very tall. A few tall receivers, including him. Caleb Douglas, who's going to go a little bit later in this draft. And Jordan Hudson. Colby Young, also from Georgia. So Omar Cooper Jr. was a visit for San Francisco as well. But of course, he went yesterday at number 30. It is clear that the 49ers wanted Dejon Stribling more than Omar Cooper. They could have grabbed Omar Cooper at number 30 yesterday, and they said, nah, we'll pass. And Omar Cooper was picked at number 30, and the 49ers moved down to pick number 33, where they went ahead and they grabbed Dejon Stribling. Mike might have some intel for us. Oh, good. He's got the route tree now. One thing, he's going to have to develop his route tree. With this guy, I think it was 57% of his routes were of a singular variety. Dane Brugler had all the numbers, and I'm going to go ahead and get all of this up on the screen here in a second. I'm going through some of the scouting report because Dane has watched snap in, snap out of all these guys. So the beast is actually a really, really good way to go through some of the larger scale numbers. But if you look at this, which Mike just sent, you will see the 2025 route percentage. He's running a ton of 9 routes. That would make sense. The go routes with the 4.3 speed. And he's coming back on some curls. So the curl is a standard route that's going to happen when a guy has speed and the corner has to play back. The 49ers have been looking for field stretchers. They're looking to generate separation. If this guy can come in and, even if he's raw at the NFL level, if he can come in and threaten with his size and his speed, that can create separation for everyone else. And you could see that the vast majority of his routes are coming on either 9 routes or curl routes. So I think it was something a little bit above 50% that was either the go ball or the comeback. And the comeback is obviously derived in the ability to run deep, because you're going to have the corners playing off. They're going to be on their heels, and then you're going to be able to cut in and catch a pass that obviously is shorter. That's a little bit underneath. If he can work a little bit more on some of the digs, on some of the outs, we don't see a lot of posts and corners. That takes a lot of that hip deception and just more nuanced route running ability. He can be a much, much more versatile wide receiver. In fact, to run the Z behind Ricky Pearsall, I think that's what it's going to take. Funny enough, if you're running the X, if you can block, if you could go deep, and if you could hit that comeback route, well, you're already halfway there as far as at least occupying space and drawing a safety over, drawing some of that defensive attention downfield so you can open up some of the room that the X can do. The X is supposed to be a space generator. But to be truly, truly solid across all of the receiving positions, you're going to have to develop the ability to run those corners and those posts. And that just really wasn't part of Dejon Stribling's game last season at the University, at Ole Miss, University of Mississippi. We've got success by route for Dejon Stribling as well. So this is going to be another good graphic. Now, that was frequency by route. Here's success by route. What routes was he best at? So all of a sudden this has changed, and you can see that there's red on the 9 routes, 55.8% success rate on these deep routes. He had a much, much higher success rate running the digs, but he didn't run all too many of them. And the curls had a solid success rate of 76%. So coming back to the quarterback, Dejon Stribling, using that speed to gain the cushion, I think that was something that really helped a high-powered Ole Miss offense last year. Now, he didn't run much of the slants. That was only a 13% distribution. This is route percentage again. but he had an 81% success rate on the slant. So quite clear that there is an interesting amount to work with here. He says that he's looking forward to meeting John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. Just did that initial Zoom interview with the 49ers. We've got some interesting comparison charts. Mike is feeding with me with a lot of information, which is really, really helpful. We can get that up on the screen. We can also get the relative athletic score up on the screen because we did show the spider chart. And while the spider chart is nice, we always like a nice relative athletic score. And this is what it looks like for Dejon Stribling. So you can see the size is good. That's what I've been saying throughout this whole time. 6'2", 207. The explosion is great. The broad jump is especially impressive, over 10 feet. The speed is elite at 4.3. So the 49ers love that speed on the outside. Now, he doesn't have great agility. The short shuttle and the three cone, especially the short shuttle, leaves something to be desired. And that explains, I think, why you haven't seen near the frequency at the corner routes, at the post routes. And I think that's probably why this guy's ultimately going to end up being a backup X for the 49ers, which is a very, very important position. Now, San Francisco is moving to a more passing-oriented offense with Brock Purdy. It is becoming increasingly important to have depth in this wide receiver room. The 49ers have had so many injuries and so many issues, and they root back to Brandon Ayuk at wide receiver in recent years. And so many of them, revolve around the fact that when the X is not available, everything becomes harder because spacing for the rest of the offense isn't there. And that's why they've ranked dead last in 2025 in average separation at the time of catch. That's why that number improved to only number 24, number 25 in 2012. Well, that was 2024. They ranked dead last. It improved to number 25 in 2025. They haven't had an appropriate X space generating wide receiver, and things have fallen off a complete cliff when other guys have gotten hurt because of it, because, guys like Jawan Jennings would step into that role. He didn't exactly have the speed, though, to be able to be the threatening field stretching X. And then the 49ers would run into a whole world of trouble where it would just be, okay, let's dump it off to Christian McCaffrey because nobody is getting open downfield. So in the case of Stribling, you would hope that he can come into a football game and use that field stretching speed, use his ability to block, which I think is already above the level of a Jordan Watkins, obviously above the level of a Jacob Cowing, who's a smaller receiver. Use that ability to block to be a 3-down wide receiver. We talk about 3-down edge rushers. You could talk about 3-down wide receivers filling at that X position. Mike Evans is not going to be around forever. It's a 3-year deal, but he's going to be 33 years old. So that's the fit for the 49ers. And I think that it's a clear one. It's one that goes back to our pre-draft prognostication of the wide receiver position. If you guys need to see it one more time, their first pick here at number 33 is for Dejon Stribling. He gets that green highlight. If it makes you guys happier, we could even put him in that X spot behind Mike Evans. But just for the time, I think I'll actually do that. You know why? Because I think that Demarcus Robinson is so versatile. He's seen so much football. Whereas Stribling, with his skill set and with what he has done well so far, I think that you almost want to pigeonhole him earlier on because of just how fit works. And I think that he might start at the X as far as his development goes, his learning curve goes. And then he could learn as he develops more route running ability, as he learns from guys on this 49ers roster, he might learn the Z, he might learn the F, and that's going to help him try to get some playing time. But I am certainly not opposed to the idea of putting a guy in the same room as Mike Evans, putting a rookie in the same room as Mike Evans, and telling him just soak it up. Soak up all of the knowledge that Mike is bringing to the table, because he's a future Hall of Famer and he's going to be able to give you a lot of tips and tricks, and maybe even make Dejon Stribling a better guy in terms of contested catch ability. Because if there is a weakness in the physical profile, it definitely is in the arm length. 31 and 5/8 inch arms for Dejon Stribling, and I think it shows up on tape. I don't think he's great with the contested catches, but the guy works his tail off. He should be good in the locker room for the 49ers. And the speed, again, it's not all about that particular receiver making a catch on every single down. It's about that guy creating space either by how good of a blocker he can be at the X or by how well he can stretch a defense with his speed at that X wide receiver position. And again, the classic quote, this comes from the Beast, from Dane Brugler. He's got that Hawaii chill, kind of quiet, but trains like he's a Marine. Priorities are in order. Only one drop in all of 2025. That broken hand / broken wrist that he suffered in 2023 was the only injury red flag or asterisk that we see on his college resume. 55 catches, 811 yards last year, 52 catches, 882 yards in 2024 for two separate teams, for Oklahoma State and then for Ole Miss. All right, I'm going to answer some of your questions. Mike is asking, can this guy be the big slot day one? Absolutely. That's why I'm talking about three-position versatility. It is not only about the small slot, and obviously Christian Kirk qualifies as a smaller slot in this league. The 49ers haven't had a big slot emerge since the departure of Dejon Jennings, and I'm fairly confident that Dejon Jennings will not be on this football team next year. Dejon, though, brought 6'2", 6'3" height to the slot position. He didn't bring all that much speed. He ran a 4.7 40. Somebody like Stribling, you know, maybe you run him in that big slot because of his blocking ability. You like that blocking ability a little bit closer in line. And you also don't argue with speed happening at that big slot position. Now, would there be a learning curve? Obviously, this guy has been fast enough and big enough to be a predominantly outside wide receiver in college. But I could bring up the roster again. The 49ers essentially require guys, in order to have a chance to see the field, they require guys to play all three of these positions. So I would say Jacob Cowing officially on notice. Jordan Watkins officially on notice, assuming Demarcus Robinson makes this football team. And there's a chance, too, that both Watkins and Cowing wow the 49ers so much that it's Robinson who's the odd man out. But I think with the way that the 49ers are trending with these veterans, and this is the oldest offense in the league, remember, Robinson is part of that. So maybe this is the first step in a modernization process there. But I think that the way that the 49ers are trending with the chips being pushed into this season, they want to have real veteran backstops at all these positions. And we saw the value of Demarcus Robinson in the playoffs against the Philadelphia Eagles. So I think that the time is now, especially for Jacob Cowing entering season number 3. He's got to show something in training camp in order to make this 53-man roster. It's going to be season 2 for Jordan Watkins, who's got a lot of speed, like a Dejon Stribling. The 49ers are getting faster with this pick. That is unquestionable, that they're getting faster, and that's what they've needed to do given the separation issues in recent seasons. But big slot is a good call out from Mike. If you look at the way that the 49ers are built, Evans and Robinson can both play the X. Stribling, I think, starts learning at the X position from Mike Evans, because there's nothing that can go wrong if Mike Evans is imparting knowledge on you. I don't see Stribling as a natural Z, because I haven't seen him run all too many posts and corners. Robinson can back up at any position. And then you've got Christian Kirk on a 1-year deal playing the slot, the F for the 49ers. But I think that Stribling gives you kind of that dual adaptability at the slot position. And we're seeing this on the defensive side too. You've got your big nickel and you've got your small nickel. The small nickel for the 49ers is an Upton Stout. I think the big nickel is going to be Nate Hobbs, who they signed in free agency. And the reason that you need a big nickel on top of the small nickel is because you got the big slot receivers. It's not just small 5'9" guys, 5'10", 5'11" guys playing the slot receiver anymore. Now you've got the taller wideouts. Dejon Jennings made a living being a wide receiver number 3 for the 49ers at 6'2" or 6'3". I know that Jennings had good side-to-side lateral separation ability, even though he didn't have great speed for the 49ers, but he got to work a lot against nickel backs. He had a size advantage against them. He got to work a lot against matchup safeties. He had an agility advantage against them. Somebody here, like Dejon Stribling, is going to win in different ways than Dejon Jennings. There's going to be less fluidity. I don't think that his hips have what Dejon Jennings' hips have in terms of some of that bend and that route running fluidity that we saw whenever Dejon would be able to get open on those third downs. But he definitely has more straight line speed. And one can argue that the skill set of Dejon Stribling will be better for the overall separation of the 49ers offense than the skill set of Jauan Jennings, who might have been able to get himself open, create contested opportunities that he won, but how much was that impacting other guys on the field? And it's really hard, even if a guy is elite doing what Jauan Jennings did, it's really, really hard to impact other wide receivers if there is not a blistering physical characteristic that the defense must account for. And I think that the 4.36 speed of Dejon Stribling qualifies as such for the 49ers. One more look at the relative athletic score. As you can see, the agility in the bottom right, not great for Stribling, but the speed, really, really solid. The explosion, really solid. The size is good, and that drop rate is also good. We got to trade. We got to trade. The Cowboys are trading for Dee Winters. Oh, boy. All right, we're going to have to make this into the headline, Mike. So this also was something that I don't think is unexpected. The 49ers have had a logjam at linebacker. They had 9 linebackers under contract entering this NFL draft. Now they're down to 8 under contract. And what is the return for the 49ers, Mike? I need that from you. Mike keeps on typing my name, trying to get my attention, but I need actual details of the trade. According to Tom Pelissero, the Cowboys are trading for 49ers linebacker Dee Winters. No idea yet. Why don't we get that title changed to let me send this to you right now. '49ers trade Dee Winters and draft Dejon Stribling. I need you to change that title, Mike. Thank you. All right, the 49ers are going to get a 5th rounder for Dee Winters. So that gives the 49ers yet another pick in this draft. They have been in the business of accumulating draft capital. It's funny because I tweeted about this right before the start of this round, and I want to get the Dee Winters reaction up there too, right on the bottom. So you guys need to give me a little bit of a break here. '49ers trade Dee Winters to Dallas. Now, Dee Winters played his college football at TCU, which is in Fort Worth. So he gets to go back to his area of college ball where he played on Sonny Dykes' team. And now Dee is going to be a linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys. Matt Eberflus and Dee Winters trade places. 5th round pick for San Francisco means that we can look at their assortment of selections here. I had this ready before we started the show, if I could find it. I've got a lot of stuff open now. This is where things start getting busy over the course of the NFL draft. Maybe I don't have it. You know, I think I foreshadowed that trade, though. We started this on this day back in 1987. The 49ers did trade for Steve Young. 2nd and 4th round picks went to Tampa Bay. Steve Young, the quarterback, went to the 49ers. Now it is Dee Winters heading to the Dallas Cowboys, and the 49ers have added a 2nd, 5th round pick. San Francisco entered this draft without a single 5th round pick. Now the 49ers have 2 of them. Now the 5th round pick that they picked up is not listed here. This is what I tweeted yesterday entering this round. So they use pick number 33 on Stribling. They trade Dee Winters away. They pick up another 5th round selection. Nick Sorensen is the special teams coach of the Dallas Cowboys, so he reunites with Dee Winters. And the 49ers, according to Adam Schefter, are also still hopeful, and they are actively trying to trade Brandon Ayuk. Let's go to the 49ers roster now and take a look at the linebacker room now that Dee Winters is gone. Now, what did Winters mean leaving for the 49ers? Well, it is a sign of belief in a couple guys here. Nick Martin, I think, is the biggest potential beneficiary. He impressed San Francisco last year, but unfortunately went into the concussion protocol as soon as he earned a starting spot at the Sam linebacker position. So here's Winters at Sam linebacker. We had him as the third linebacker. Remember, Dre Greenlaw returning essentially made Winters redundant as far as weak side linebacker went. They had depth with him there, but look at all these bodies at the linebacker position, a total of 9. Well, Winters is gone. I think that moves Nick Martin into position to take that third linebacker role. Now, if he doesn't take it, then there are other guys on this team like a Garrett Wallow, like a Tatum Bethune who might be able to do it. But for the time being, Nick Martin is the most athletic of those players and definitely has the highest upside. And I don't think that you trade Dee Winters away unless you believe that you can pick up the slack of that position with somebody who has a more impressive athletic profile. So arrow up for Nick Martin. Dee Winters is now with Dallas. The 49ers have pick number 152 in the 5th round as a result of this Dee Winters trade. So how about we go fresh tweet with this? Let's go back to Twitter. Pick number 152. 49ers overload surplus in the linebacker room has turned into yet another pick. And then I've got to show you what Bill Walsh did in 1986. So the 49ers now have 8 picks in this NFL draft. They've already spent one of them on Dejon Stribling. And now, as I prepare this tweet, I can say that they've added another one on this day thanks to trading Dee Winters. After trading linebacker Dee Winters to Dallas, the 49ers now have 8 picks in this 2026 NFL draft. They began with 6. And they used pick 33 on Dejon Stribling, which I also want to get up on this tweet. All right, it is tweeted. Let's get this up on the screen for you guys so we can better visualize where the 49ers are in terms of their draft selections. The outdated list is gone. The new one is here. 49ers have made that first pick. 152 that I'm circling down here is the one that they got from the Dallas Cowboys. So the 49ers have traded with Dallas twice now over the course of this offseason. They sent a 3rd-round pick for Osa Odigizua. They now get a 5th-round pick back, sending Dee Winters to the Cowboys. Down to 8 linebackers in the 49ers building, and I only expect 6 at most to make the 53-man roster. So there was a surplus there. The 49ers turned the surplus into a draft pick. Now you've got Warner, Greenlaw, Nick Martin, Bethune, Wallow, and Gifford, a special teams Pro Bowler. You also have Jalen Graham and Milo Eifler on the team. It's a trade that made a whole lot of sense, and that's why we predicted it heading up into this NFL draft. The 5th-round return is solid for the 49ers. It means that they have yet another pick to round out their haul tomorrow. Now, I said that they started this draft with 6 picks. Well, the whole idea of trading down, accumulating more draft capital, that was really pioneered by a famous coach. You might have heard of him. His name was Bill Walsh. This is coming from one of my articles that I've written in the past for the San Francisco Standard. But just to give some historical precedent, some tie-ins to 49ers past here, the 1986 draft is known as one of the most iconic hauls of all time, not just in franchise history. Bill Walsh made a staggering 6 trades during the 1986 NFL draft, which obviously was 40 years ago. So 40 years after 1986, San Francisco is wheeling and dealing again. Back in 86, the majority of Walsh's trades were trades down. He replaced higher draft picks with more selections in the lower rounds. There's a really good biography on Bill Walsh written by David Harris. He wrote that come draft day, the second floor at 49ers headquarters in Redwood City at the time took on the air of a commodities market. When the wheeling and dealing was done, the 49ers no longer owned their first round pick, but they held 13 total selections, including 3 in both the third and the fourth rounds. So San Francisco ballooned their draft pick total to 13 back in 1986. The wheelhouse of that 86 draft was right in the middle in the third and the fourth rounds. And if you look now to see where the 49ers are at, they've got a lot of picks in the middle. They're going to have pick number 58 coming up a little bit later today. But also, San Francisco is going to have, or as of right now, they're lined up for 3 picks in the fourth round, 2 in the fifth. 58 and 90 are the picks that we expect from the 49ers, though, later this evening. So Winters away. Dejon Stribling, the wide receiver, joins the 49ers. We'll see if Mike has anything else for us. Stribling averaged 7.3 yards after the catch per reception. The 49ers turn Dee Winters around, a former 6th-round pick out of TCU, for a 5th-rounder. So they actually profit off of Dee Winters after just 3 years. 49ers busy wheeling and dealing, just like Bill Walsh back 40 years ago in that 1986 draft. Next pick for the 49ers is scheduled to be coming at number 58, late in the second round. So as soon as they make that pick, we will be live, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Stribling is a 49er. Winters no longer with San Francisco. Hit that subscribe button. Talk to you in a bit.